boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
Millennials are voting at higher rates than younger adults once did, helping the Democratic Party. What seems to be driving younger voters to the polls isn't love, but anger. Many younger voters have become more politically active because they fear for the country's future. Those on the left, who are a majority of younger voters, worry about climate change, abortion access, the extremism of the Republican Party, and more. Now, those on the right worry about secularization, political correctness, illegal immigration, and more. Twitter's U.S. advertising revenue plunged by 59% for the 5 weeks from April 1st to the first week of May. The company has seen regular falls in its sales projections, sometimes as much as 30%. Twitter's ad sales staff is concerned that advertisers may be spooked by the rise in hate speech and pornography on the social network, as well as more ads featuring online gambling and marijuana products. Nikki Haley had a fresh opportunity to make her case for her candidacy during a 90-minute CNN town hall special on Sunday night. This was an effort to emerge from the low single digits in polls where she has been mired. Now, compared with CNN's explosive, much criticized town hall style event with Donald Trump last month, this one was a throwback to earlier, less combative times. There was no audience jeers whipped up from the stage and no forceful interrogation of the candidate. Some states are letting neighborhoods police themselves. In April, the police stepped aside and let residents of the Brownsville Safety Alliance in New York City, this is a group of neighborhood and city groups, respond to 911 calls. In the first half of 2023, the group says homicides fell by 50%. They say shootings fell by 25%, and the rate of grand larcenies of automobiles also fell, even as it rose in other neighborhoods. Now, similar programs are underway in Eugene, Oregon, Denver, and Rochester, New York. The Center for American Progress says that almost 40% of calls to police could be handled by community responders. A decision by then-President Donald Trump's campaign to send more than $1 million for two firms to study whether electoral fraud occurred in the 2020 election has become an increasing focus of federal and state investigators in recent weeks. The research is likely to be used as the prosecutors try to build a broader case alleging racketeering. Robert F. Kennedy, a candidate for president supported by 1 in 5 Democratic voters in some polls, campaigns on the idea that powerful people have been working in secret to deceive you. Kennedy's campaign aims to embrace the spirit of his family's 1960 and 1968 campaigns, hoping to reunite working-class white supporters of former President Donald Trump with the Black and Hispanic coalition of Democrats that once rallied behind the Kennedy name. Robert Kennedy argues that current national polling does not yet account for the shifts he can bring to who votes in open Democratic primaries. And there's another Democrat entering the race for president. This is Professor Cornel West. He says he's running for truth and justice as a presidential candidate. Let me correct myself. He's not running as a Democrat. He's running as a candidate for the People's Party to reintroduce America to the best of itself. He says he's going to fight to end poverty, mass incarceration, ending wars and ecological collapse, and guaranteeing housing, health care, education, and living wages for all. California's Attorney General Rob Bonta is probing whether migrants flown by private planes to Sacramento without any prior arrangements were in possession of documentation purporting to be from the government of the state of Florida. Attorney General Bonta is also evaluating potential criminal or civil action against those who transported or arranged for the transport of these vulnerable immigrants. Well, this is Ariva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Ariva Martin. This is your one stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I'm joined by two brilliant contributors, immigration attorney Alan Orr and Democratic strategist Chris Scott. And in hour two, for my Behind the Headlines interview, I go one on one with Dr. Andra Gillespie. She's the author of Race and the Obama Administration Substance, Symbols, and Hope. I'm going to talk to Dr. Gillespie about what role will the Obama administration have on the 2024 election and how all of the candidates, including now Professor Cornel West, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, the whole roster of Democrats and Republicans, even those running as independents, how are they going to address the role of race and the issue of race, and how will the Obama administration and his handling of race play a part? But before I bring on my guests, here's what I'm thinking in real time. Today, Breonna Taylor would have been 30 years old. But she's not around to celebrate her birthday because she was shot and killed while sleeping in her bed by Louisville, Kentucky police officers. And this morning, as I was reflecting on the murder of young Breonna Taylor, I ran across this story of another senseless police shooting of a 31-year-old black man by the name of Najee Seabrooks. Najee Seabrooks had worked for years to reverse a spike in shootings in Paterson, New Jersey. He had worked to build friendships with gunshot victims and to persuade gang members not to retaliate against each other. But now Mr. Seabrooks is dead. He barricaded himself in a bathroom, and when the police arrived in riot gear, they trained their guns on the bathroom door, and after Mr. Seabrooks emerged with a knife, he was shot and killed. His murder resulted in widespread protests throughout the state of New Jersey, and particularly in the city of Paterson. And unfortunately, this was not the first time police in this city has shot and killed an African American. But his shooting not only prompted widespread protests, it also prompted an unprecedented action by the Attorney General for the state of New Jersey. After the shooting death of Mr. Seabrooks, the Attorney General for that state seized control of the Paterson Police Department. And in an interview, the Attorney General said this high-profile shooting was evidence of misconduct, widespread misconduct on the part of the Paterson Police Department, including what he called a number of criminal offenses committed by police officers. The Attorney General said he couldn't sleep every night wondering what the next shoe to drop was going to be. Now, the sad reality about the Paterson Police Department is that they have a history of robbing, beating, shooting, and killing scores of black men, earning the department a reputation as one of the most troubled and violent police departments in the state of New Jersey. Between 2018 and 2020, the city's black residents, who make up about a quarter of the population, were the subject of 57% of the police department's 600 plus uses of force. So here you have 25% of the population in Paterson, New Jersey is black, but black folks are 57% of the use of force cases. The takeover by this Attorney General represents a bold attempt to answer a quandary that has long confounded cities and states across the country and really boiled over in 2014 when a police officer in Ferguson, Missouri shot and killed Michael Brown. And that quandary is, how do you fix deep-rooted cultural problems and repair trust in a police department with a history of abuse, particularly abuse of black and brown folks in communities? This is a question confronting this Attorney General, and it's a question confronting police departments all over this country. And what better day to reflect on that than on the birthday, the 30th birthday of Breonna Taylor? The reality is, if this takeover is successful in Paterson, New Jersey, it could become a national model. It could become a model of how attorney generals seek to use their power to address widespread police misconduct. It also can become a model of attorney generals working in partnership with the U.S. Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division in overhauling troubled police departments. Now, we know if it fails, and it's not really clear how we're going to define success or failure, but we know that those on the right will be waiting to pounce on this model. I'm not sure, though, how I feel about it. Obviously, Paterson, New Jersey was out of control. Something needed to happen. In this case, you have a Democratic attorney general seizing control of a police department to address widespread abuse by that police department that's been perpetrated for years on Black and brown folks. But what if that attorney general was in a red state? What if that attorney general was trying to take over a police department like the police department in St. Louis, Missouri, where you have an African-American mayor and you have a police chief appointed by that African-American mayor? What if you have a red state, a conservative, a Republican attorney general trying to seize control over that police department? Lots of questions. I'm going to have my contributors weigh in on how they are feeling about attorney generals using their power to seize control over local police departments. Obviously, something needed to be done in Paterson, New Jersey. And the question is, was this the right thing to do in real time? When we come forward, KBLA Talk 1580.
She's the real deal in real time. You're listening to Ariva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Hey, did you know nacho fries are back at Taco Bell? But they're not going to hang around forever, so don't wait. Or you might miss out on these hot, crisp fries covered in all those bold Mexican spices with delicious nacho cheese sauce. Or wait and just settle for flavorless fries. Regular, bland, spiceless, flavorless, flimsy, non-nacho fries. Just an absolute bummer of a fry.
Nacho fries are back. Get them today, only at Taco Bell. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time only while supplies last. Contact local store for hours and participation which vary.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Tired of being locked out of job opportunities and shut down by systemic racism? KBLA stands with you in fighting for the rights of black workers, and we don't black down. The Los Angeles Black Workers Center is a dynamic alliance of workers, organized labor, community-based organizations, clergy, students, and scholars, working collectively to improve the position of the black working class. The LA Black Workers Center takes a comprehensive approach to addressing the black jobs crisis. Their programs promote access to quality jobs, racial equity in hiring and retention, discrimination-free job sites, and they prepare black workers for employment in high-wage, career-track jobs. The Black Workers Center supports workers who need help protecting their rights on the job. They give workers access to quality jobs and remove systemic barriers to employment. To sign up for free career readiness training, get involved in organizing around anti-discrimination, learn about union apprenticeship programs, or sign on to a trade registry, please visit www.lablackworkerscenter.org. That's lablackworkerscenter.org. Together, we can beat the black jobs crisis. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi,
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
The way we spend our time defines who we are. You're listening to Ariva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm back, and I'm joined in this hour by immigration attorney Alan Orr and Democratic strategist Chris Scott. All right, so Chris and Alan, the Attorney General in the state of New Jersey, has seized control of the Paterson, New Jersey's police department after a shooting of this 31-year-old African-American man, Najee Seabrooks. Najee was known in this community for helping to mediate crises and helping to prevent violence, and maybe he had some kind of mental health breakdown or issue or challenge, but anyhow, he barricaded himself in a bathroom in a house. Police come in riot gear, and after a standoff, Mr. Seabrooks is shot by police, and it prompted widespread protests, also prompted the Attorney General to take advantage of a piece of legislation that allows the Attorney General to take control or seize control of a local police department. And you know, I ran across this article today as I was reflecting on the 30th birthday of Breonna Taylor and just thinking about how much work we need to do in this country around policing and what are some of the best practices to really get the kind of result that we want, which most black folks say they want, which is not to do away with police, but to have constitutional policing in their communities, policing that does not deprive them of their constitutional rights and doesn't result in the kind of abuses that the Paterson Police Department was just off the chain, abusive, selling drugs out of their cars, jacking people up, stealing, the violence it was so rampant. It's unbelievable that the Justice Department had not come in and done something with this police department before. But how are you feeling, Alan, about this Attorney General takeover in this state where you have this Democrat? I'm like, okay, but we also know that this could be happening in a red state, and it could be trying to take over the police department like in St. Louis, where you have a black mayor, you have a black police chief.
I think it is happening everywhere. You see this grab of power from certain people who feel they're better positioned to control or to handle situations level. I think the concept of policing as it arose from slavery needs to be redefined and changed. I think policing in itself makes people feel secure when in fact the statistics don't bear that out, that it leads to security. And in fact, they're coming after the crime has already happened or causing the event in which there is a problem. So therefore we need to rethink the way we do that and follow some of the societies that police may not even have guns. They may have sticks. They may have other things. I do believe that there is a level, because of the level of guns in this country, that we do have to have some control, but I don't think that it's always the right situation. And maybe a law enforcement agent who is not qualified in social services should not be the first person to handle someone having a crisis on the scene.
Yeah, you said maybe our police officers should have sticks. The first thing I'm thinking about, okay, that's not going to work out so well when so many of our private citizens have not just guns, but they have assault rifles and they have, ammunition that would be, appropriate for war and war-type crises. So I don't know, Chris. This is a thorny issue. And whenever black folks are polled about policing, they are pretty clear. They want police. They just want good police. They just want honest police. They want, community policing. They are not in favor of eliminating the police.
Yeah, I think back to my time when I was working for Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx on her reelection campaign, and some of her main points of, just being smarter about, how we police communities, making sure that the police actually have a relationship with the community that they're policing. But also let's look at the type of things that we're even having police respond to, especially in the case I think of how much more prevalent mental health is and how many more times you get those calls. Sometimes I don't think the police need to be the ones actually responding to those calls. You need to have a more specific unit, similar to how you would have a SWAT team respond to a bomb threat. Why don't we have more responses for people that are trained to actually deal with that? And I think that's just the start of how we get better in how we police communities in the first place.
So both of you have been very skilled in not answering my questions. I got to come back, Alan. What do you feel about these attorney generals taking over police departments? Thumbs up or thumbs down on that as a policy?
I think it's inappropriate. I think it's inappropriate for them to take over the department. That's clear. I also don't want people to think I'm Pollyannish. I think that we need to de-escalate everybody. We need to get a handle on guns and a handle on the police, and those things work together. But, ratcheting up each side to go to a higher level is an escalation. We need to de-escalate things.
What are you, Chris, on attorney generals? Yay or nay?
Yeah, I'm a nay on that as well. I think it gets to a little bit of overreach, and especially in the South, I worry about what a red state would do if they had a law like that in place.
Yeah, that's the problem. There are these exceptions, and Patterson obviously needed a quick and very, serious intervention because those police officers are out of control. But, we can't advocate it in this one situation and then have to deal with it, as you said, in some of these southern states, these red states, because we know it's not going to end well for black folks in those states. Let's talk about the two presidential candidates, Robert Kennedy, Allen, and now Professor Cornel West. He says he is best qualified, best suited to be the next president of the United States. We know he's known for his academic activism. He's a former professor of practice at Harvard University. He's been a professor at Princeton University. He's 70 years old, and he says neither political party wants to tell the truth about Wall Street, about Ukraine, about the Pentagon, about big tech, and what is really happening in this country. And he says he's the guy to do it. What do you think about Professor wanting to be soon President Cornel West? Yes.
Okay, so that's a hard pass for me. I think he's a brilliant mind. He's a black philosopher, and he was one of my idols. I'm also a philosophy major, but his best place is in the classroom. He does not have the credentials to go to the White House, and we've seen this experiment before with another president who didn't have the sort of chops, the political chops, and the sort of political activities. I think that his heart may be in the right place, but his activities are going to cause dissension within the Democratic Party and confusion among black voters, which just doesn't need to be there. I don't think he could have the same conversations that he's had for many years, right? Had many panels, same impact, because I just don't think that he has the gravitas at this point to make it to the White House.
So, Chris, you're a Democratic strategist, and this is, I guess, a Democratic strategist's nightmare is to have an African-American man running as a third-party candidate, meaning he's not a Republican candidate, he's not a Democratic candidate. How much damage, if any, can a third-party candidacy of Cornel West do to Dems?
Look, I love Dr. West. I think, he probably will have some people following, but I look at it similar to when Kanye West was trying to put himself on the ballot in the primary. It's just, he doesn't have the record to even attempt to go for something like that. So all the luck to him in the endeavor, but let's just call it for what it is. It's just essentially a smoke screen, and it'll be, news for 24 hours, 48 hours. But, we all know what the big prize is at the end, and it's Biden against whoever is going to be on this Republican side.
I'm looking at a tweet, Alan, because someone is criticizing Cornel West, saying that he is praising Ron DeSantis, and they're asking the question of why would Cornel West, in an op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal, praise DeSantis what's happening? Why would he praise him as this man is destroying public education, declares war on anti-racism, and rains hell on LGBTQ folks, then announce a presidential bid? What are we to make of Cornel West's
exhibit number one of why he should not be anywhere close to the White House? Exhibit number one, just staple it, right? That exact sort of level of supporting someone who's that extreme, and the things and the harm they've even done to the community that he plans to support, is exhibit number one.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Cornel West, like you are, Alan. I think many of us are. Those of us who fancy ourselves, I don't know, we're not going to call us pseudo-intellectuals. We're intellectuals, We have some intellectual heft, but, so we've read him and we followed his career. I don't know about this, though. He makes me nervous, Chris, like Robert Kennedy. Robert Kennedy has just trafficked in conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory. And one of the ones that really concerns me is around autism. As an autism advocate, as a mother of a child on the autism spectrum, his theories about autism and the Black community and some of the theories he has around COVID, all are very troubling. So what do you make of Robert Kennedy as a candidate? He says 1 in 5 Dems are going to vote for him, and that those numbers are low, and that when the real poll numbers come out, they're even higher because he offers a solution forward that Joe Biden doesn't. And he's the real Democrat in this race that folks should be, getting behind.
I mean, the only reason why we're even talking about Robert Kennedy is because of his last name, and it stops there, really. I think when you're looking at who is trying to essentially make up a primary field on the Democratic side between Marianne Williamson, I think the bigger thing is let's not give the platform, I think, that we've seen happen, especially on the Republican side, to folks that can potentially spread disinformation that could be really problematic in this election cycle.
Yeah, and Robert Kennedy is a purveyor of disinformation, unfortunately, and I think you're right. But for his last name, we wouldn't even be having this conversation about him. But yet that the Kennedy name carries so much weight in political circles, particularly Democratic political circles. Not sure his candidacy has the kind of support that he purports it to have. When we come forward, I want to talk about a former Watergate prosecutor says that Donald Trump is toast, that he is all but surely to be indicted because of his removal of classified documents from the White House. I want to talk about, are we going to see the indictment of Donald Trump in the next couple of weeks, according to this former Watergate prosecutor? Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Arriva time is the right time. More of Arriva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Julius White. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The list of GOP presidential candidates continues to grow. Among those announcing their plans over the weekend, African-American conservative talk show host Larry Elder. Elder becomes the second Black declared candidate making a White House run, joining South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. Former Vice President Mike Pence and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie are set to formally announce their campaigns this week. The body of one of 3 men missing following the recent partial apartment building collapse in Davenport, Iowa, has been found. The 2 others remain unaccounted for. The FBI is expecting to bring a document to Capitol Hill today that allegedly describes a $5 million criminal bribery scheme involving President Biden and a foreign national. This after Republican House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer of Kentucky threatened to hold FBI Director Christopher Wray in contempt of Congress. I'm Julius White on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Shop savings on all your outdoor essentials now at Lowe's. Buy a Craftsman V20 string trimmer or leaf blower for just $99. Get a select pair tool free. Lowe's knows lawn care. Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid through 6/7. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Miami Heat evened up the NBA Finals at 1-1 with a 3-point win Sunday night in Denver. A couple of major adjustments by Heat coach Eric Spoelstra was the difference in Game 2. Nuggets center Nikola Jokic scored a game-high 41 points, but he had only 4 assists. Jokic had 14 in Game 1. The 4 assists means Jokic accounted for at least 20 fewer points in Game 2. The Heat made it much more difficult for Jokic to pass the ball to open teammates. The Heat also made good on a promise to be more aggressive in going to the basket. After only 2 free throw attempts in Game 1, they were 18 of 20 last night. Gabe Vincent, one of 7 undrafted players on the Heat roster, led the Heat with 23 points. Game 3 is Wednesday night in Miami at 5:30 on ABC. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
Did you know that all City of LA renters have rights? Check out these 3 facts. Residential tenants can't be evicted without reason or just cause. Eviction protection still exists for unpaid COVID-19 rental debt due before March 31st, 2023. And you have 5 days to respond to an eviction notice. 5 days. Many Angelinos may be at risk of losing their home, and that's why we want you to know your rights. Learn more at housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action is the youth component of the impactful CBO, known as the Community Coalition. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action has chapters at almost every South LA high school. Say Yeah, as they are popularly known, is located at 80th and Vermont, but serves young people all over South LA. Under the COCO umbrella, they train youth organizers, help underserved scholars prepare for college, and work with students to help them gain admission to top universities. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action fosters teen activism, where young people have led campaigns moving tens of millions of dollars to South LA schools and forcing officials to make AP classes available to students in under-resourced institutions. SCES scholars have taken part in the March on Washington, been published in major news outlets, and been elected to city council. Long before she was mayor, Karen Bass started the program when she founded the Community Coalition. To donate, volunteer, or enroll a student in South Central Youth Empowered Through Action, please visit cocsouthla.org. cocsouthla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. There's no time like the present. Let's get back to more of Aretha Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm back, and I'm joined in this hour by immigration attorney Alan Orr and Democratic strategist Chris Scott. And we're talking about all of these folks who are running for president, many of them unconventional candidates. And I forgot to mention, Alan, that Larry Elders is running for president. He recently ran. He was going to try to be the next governor of the state of California if there had been a successful recall of our governor, Gavin Newsom. So he made a little waves in the state of California as he did that. Now he says, oh, California is too small of a pond. He needs to take his show on the national road, and he needs to be president of the United States. Why are we seeing folks like Larry Elders, who's a radio conservative? I don't know what his, I guess he's Republican. He's running a Republican primary. He's a conservative talk show host. Why is he running for president? And why is Professor Cornel West running for president?
Problem that we have from our last election, still the last one prior to the Biden administration. Now we have this concept that anybody can be president, which as a child, maybe if you do the work, but you just don't throw your hat in the ring. So now we're doing high school and we're all going to run. So of what? I don't know. Waste your money. If you got the money, the time, I mean, you could help some people, right? Send that money somewhere else.
Yes. I feel like it's one big grift. You know, it's kind of like lawsuits, right? Anybody got $235, whatever, they can go and file a lawsuit because they can pay the filing fee. But this is serious business. And unfortunately, people believe in these candidates and they donate millions and millions of dollars to these candidacies and to these candidates, I should say. And a lot of folks really believe that they have a chance of winning. They listen to their rhetoric and they believe that these candidates are viable when folks like us know that these candidates have no chance of winning, no chance of being successful. And my heart goes out to the people who they sucker. I mean, use that word. They sucker into believing that they have a chance. And folks on fixed income start sending them money. And some of these candidates, like I said, can raise millions of dollars. And it raises a question about what happens to all of that money, Chris, once these campaigns fail. What does happen to a lot of this money that people donate? What are some of the campaign finance laws? What do they have to do with this money, assuming they haven't spent it all on ads and
that's the big thing. Assuming they haven't spent it all. I think about how many times you've seen campaigns end and they still actually owe a debt because they overspent. And I think a lot of times you especially see that play in a primary where people, I think especially running for president, are very ego-driven. Everybody thinks they are the magical one, even when they know they're not, and they just want their own self-esteem boosted even more. But a lot of times, those are the main campaigns that will also owe quite a bit of debt when they're done running in the first place.
Yeah, you mentioned Marianne Williamson, Alan. She also ran for U.S. Congress. She's run for several offices. And again, all very talented individuals in their own rights, but no resume, no platform, no constituent base, nothing that would suggest that they're going to be successful on the national level. And I think you're right, too, Alan. You know, Donald Trump becoming president sent a message to anybody that, you know, qualifications be damned. Just if you're a radio host or a talk show host or a comedian or whatever, you can run for president. But we see Trump, and I have to wonder, Alan, if he's having second thoughts about being president because he has now put himself in such legal jeopardy. 3 of the lawyers representing him spent nearly 2 hours at a meeting with folks at the Department of Justice because they're complaining that this classified documents inquiry is somehow unfair. This is the case where this former Watergate prosecutor, based on her experience and what she knows about the case, and the DOJ says that he is all but certain to be indicted and that indictment is likely to come pretty quickly because they are near, the Department of Justice Special Counsel is near the end of its investigation. We know they've gone after some of these companies. This is in a whole separate case, this electoral fraud case. They're investigating some of these companies where Donald Trump spent money trying to, prove that there is electoral fraud. So everywhere you look, he is facing such jeopardy. Are you of the opinion, too, that at least in the classified documents case, we're close to an indictment?
So I'm a jurist, and justice is slow. And Teflon John has been Teflon Don for a long time. So hopefully whatever, it's like Christmas, people have been waiting for a long time. I think it's a horrible distraction because in this array, him going to jail does not solve our problem. He is a symptom of the greater problem. Even in jail, even in court, 30% of America is going to think it's all political. And that's the problem, that we don't have a realization moment. So whatever happens to Donald Trump, I'm more concerned about what happens to the democracy and if he becomes a martyr of some lost war that never existed. And he was always a fraud. He was a fraud before because he just wanted the money president. Then he got the presidency and he thought, oh my God, I'm going to do the reality show of a lifetime. He did the reality show of a lifetime. Then he lost, right? And then he grifted, which is his big grift, right? Lawsuit. He gets fined. He loses in court. He goes back on TV the next day and says the exact same thing he just got paid for, right? Never pays his bills, right? He has Mar-a-Lago and all these other places. It is a game of games. His life has always been, that's the life of a mob boss. We know that. The criminal is just one of the law always until it catches them. But then they've had a great run. And he's had a great run. I mean, my gosh, he had the presidency.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about all of these lawyers, Alan. We know how much these big firm lawyers charge. We know the pressure on them to bill hours, to create revenue for these big firms. I cannot imagine how someone other than a Donald Trump could get these kind of high-priced, otherwise super smart lawyers to represent him in case after case.
Their own lawyers. That's the problem.
Many of them need their own lawyers. Many of them facing discipline by bars, in their respective states, and some actually facing criminal investigation. All the more reason why I say, how does he keep getting folks to represent him, knowing what jeopardy it could put them in? Chris, I do want to ask you, though, before we go to break, I want to ask you about Joe Biden. How does he run against Donald Trump if Donald Trump is indicted? Because right now, Joe Biden isn't talking about Trump and all of his legal troubles and, the investigations. Is this the best strategy? And should he continue with the strategy, even if there's an indictment by the Department of Justice on these classified documents?
Well, I think depending on what actually comes out of possible indictment, I think will set up a lot of how Joe Biden approaches it in the first place. I think the biggest thing that Biden just needs to take care of is still getting the message out of what he's actually done in his first term. Look, he's already beaten Donald Trump once, so there's already a recipe for success there. But I think it's the not taking it for granted, because it should be even easier this time if you were to get him in a rematch, and make sure he still does everything he needs to do to turn out voters. Because again, like Alan said, the martyrdom that can come from Trump if he does receive an indictment is equally as scary if somehow he's allowed to stay in this Republican primary.
Yeah, I think Biden is in a conundrum, but Democratic strategists like yourself and Democratic communications specialists are going to have to figure out what's the best way to deal with Trump's, what I believe are going to be his indictments from one of these investigations. And I don't think we can just let it ride. I think we've got to draw.
Really? I think if he says something, it'll just interpret that the Department of Justice is on his side. I would totally look the other way. He's not running against Donald Trump. He's running against the Republican Party right now, because they're all versions of Donald Trump. So I would not talk about Donald Trump at all. I would not. As soon as he says something, the Department of Justice, they're under your control. They did the same thing. I would totally sort of avoid that whole conversation.
That is definitely one strategy, Alan, but I don't think it's the right strategy. I think the independents out there are going to want to hear and see that these indictments mean something. That this isn't, because I don't think everybody's bought into this notion that the Department of Justice is corrupt or it's working under the auspices of Joe Biden. I think there's still a lot of people out there that believe in the independence of the Department of Justice, that believe in the independence of the Supreme Court. And we've never had someone running for president.
You have really smart friends, though.
It's under investigation and then indicted by a state.
Well, I mean, I think you could
make Department of Justice.
You could make that argument of seeing when you have Republican Secretary of States keep their job while they're running for governor. That narrative, you have to be careful with that, because people will likely accuse him of using the Department of Justice to his own political advantage. It's just something that he has to, still at least think about how he's going to strategize, even with something like that. That should be cut and dry.
The question is going to be asked of him every time he makes a campaign a stop. They're going to ask him about this DOJ indictment. It's
I'm not here to talk about Donald Trump. I'm here to talk about the American people. Here, let me write it down for him.
I just hope he has a strategy to address it.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope we see lots of T-shirts with Donald Trump in orange jumpsuits. When we come forward, want to talk about Twitter. You know, we see in the last days of Twitter. And what about this neighborhood in New York that policed itself for 2 weeks and says that they saw a record drop in crime? Is that the way we should be thinking about policing in America? When we come forward, KBLA Talk 1580.
She's the real deal in real time. You're listening to Ariva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Reparations Task Force concludes its 15th meeting and votes on its final report, suggesting that upward of $800 billion is owed to Black Californians who are descendants of slaves. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by CaliforniaBlackMedia.org. The 9-member task force finalized its recommendations for compensating Black Californians for state laws, policies, and practices that have disproportionately and negatively affected African Americans. The final report, which will be available to the public, is expected to be about 1,000 pages long. Among the recommendations made, the state of California should issue a formal apology for the perpetration of gross human rights violations and the genocide of Africans who were enslaved and their descendants. The implied admission of guilt should mitigate the harm historically inflicted on the Black community, according to members of the task force. U.S. Representative Barbara Lee says reparations are not a luxury for our people, but a human right long overdue for millions of Americans.
Hey LA, keep your utility bills low this summer while making your home the cool place to be. LADWP can help you save hundreds with air conditioner and thermostat rebates, plus free energy-efficient home upgrades and simple tips to help you beat the heat and save money. Visit ladwp.com/cool-LA.
Have you faced discrimination in Los Angeles? The City of LA Civil Rights Department can help. They investigate private sector discrimination in LA City in commerce, education, employment, and housing. If you're facing discrimination, submit a complaint online for free at laisforeveryone.com. That's laisforeveryone.com or call 213-978-1845.
I had a nighttime routine for my frequent heartburn. I would drink milk, I would sleep upright with more pillows, but that painful burning stayed. So I made Prilosec OTC part of my morning routine. With just one pill each morning, Prilosec OTC prevents excess acid production, blocking heartburn day and night. Now I have a new nighttime routine. I call it sleeping.
1 pill a day, 24 hours, zero heartburn. With Prilosec OTC. It's possible while taking Prilosec OTC. Use as directed for 14 days to treat frequent heartburn, not for immediate relief.
When I can't sleep, my mind just races. I think about work, the kids, but I don't think about taking melatonin because I'm afraid I'll feel groggy in the morning.
ZzzQuil Pure Z's Gummies has an optimal dose of melatonin for no next-day grogginess, so you can fall asleep naturally and wake up feeling refreshed. ZzzQuil Pure Z's Gummies for better sleep like never before. And try Pure Z Sleep plus Next Day Energy with melatonin plus extended-release B vitamins.
When you're young, life is full of choices. Don't let opioids like highly addictive and deadly fentanyl take away your life and your choices with just one wrong pill. Addiction is a disease that can affect anyone at any age, but there is a choice to get help for this disease. Find medically proven treatment options, including virtual, at choosemat.org.
The way we spend our time defines who we are. You're listening to Ariva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
All right, Chris. So this Brownsville, New York neighborhood is participating in this experiment whereby 911 calls are responded to by citizens, not police officers. And they say, according to many in this community, that this is working and that crime actually fell in this community. Is this something that police departments and communities all around this country should be looking to emulate? And what are some of the pitfalls, if any, that you see in allowing residents to respond to 911 calls?
Yeah, well, I think, There is a way that you can take some things out of this. And I think we've seen this done in other townships a little bit before with more of the neighborhood police model. I think long term, I don't think it's a solution that you can have citizens fully police themselves. I mean, it's not going to work on a larger scale the larger of a city that you get. But I do think there are ideas that you can take in how to better police or police in partnership with citizens. And maybe it is having a more robust block hub to be able to assist with certain aspects when it comes to community watch and policing.
Yeah, Alan, in the story that I read about this community, there were store owners who said, hell no. They wanted the police back out on the streets with guns, and that they were very concerned about this model and how it might encourage criminals to think, it's a free fall. What do you think? How do we get this balance? I'm also thinking about police unions who are going to be adamantly opposed to citizens doing the job that they believe police should be doing, because anytime we take money away from the police, we always see a major pushback from police unions. I think you're muted, Alan.
No.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Alan.
I'm sorry. I think it needs to be a balance. I think that we need to find that happy medium where, we're not talking about militias. So therefore, we need to make sure that what we have from the community service side is something more like a neighborhood watch that's friendly and not policing and not enforcing anyone's constitutional right, but basically seeing things, spotting things, reporting things, sort of making notes about things, and then the cops are coming in and doing the other work. I think one of the problems we have in this country is that we believe that guns solve everything, and we need to move away from that fear. And we're being to each other, and that's what's going to eat us alive by saying, "Oh, it's a story. I don't have a gun. Someone's going to get me. Someone's going to," all of this boogeyman under the bed stuff is what the Republicans sell us every day to be afraid of our neighbor or the Black person or the immigrant or whatever. And we need to diffuse that.
No, you're absolutely right. But I'm glad you brought up that issue of constitutional rights, because that's one of the things police are trained to do, is to
allegedly
know people, allegedly, right? But I do worry about, that overzealous community leader that's using their instincts, right? Because they haven't had any particular training on Fourth Amendment, search and seizure, and some of these other constitutional rights that are such a part of policing and should be a front and center as police officers are going about their day-to-day activity. I think there's something good about what happened in this community and definitely should be studied. And there's something in this model that hopefully can be utilized and, to help address some of these issues that we see, so that you don't see this constant shooting of folks like 31-year-old Mr. Seabrooks or 30-year-old Breonna Taylor. And it's so important that we keep saying her name and the names of other victims of police violence to make sure that we continue as a community to look at ways to address how we police in America, particularly Black and Brown communities. All right, Twitter. Last days, we all knew that with Elon Musk, there were going to be major changes. And now we see the proof is in the pudding. 59% drop in its ad revenue. And part of it is because advertisers don't want to be on a platform where hate speech is running amok. And you have, according to some insiders, increase in pornography on the site and other ads related to gambling and marijuana sales. What do you think of that, Alan? I know you're a big Twitter user. I follow you. I know you're active.
The streets aren't what they used to be, but I'm still going to the neighborhood. So it is what it is until there's something better. And, I think it isn't having the, I was an investor in Twitter. I had stock at Twitter. But I think it's going to be okay. I think it's definitely a cesspool and it's not what it used to be, but, things change.
Oh, so you're encouraged. Is that because of the new CEO that came? Like what are you encouraged by? Because all the news coming out has been pretty negative.
Right. So I think, once again, it's about what you use it for and how you can connect. I wouldn't be able to meet a lot of the immigrant activists that I want to have. So I hang out. It's much like a church. You're going to hang out with your people and your tribe, and you can get your stuff you need, and the other stuff you block and you move away from it. So it's just like the internet to me. So it's a very useful tool to connect people across many regions in the world to say when something's happening, like, there was an earthquake, a flood in Haiti this weekend. You wouldn't have known it if it wasn't for the internet because nobody else is covering it.
Mm-hmm. All right. What about you, Chris? Alan has a very hopeful view of it. He's saying use it, but recognize that it has changed. A lot of folks have left. A lot of folks don't want to be there for, Elon's approach to Twitter, allowing hate speech, allowing it to become the place where Ron DeSantis announces his presidency in a conversation with Elon Musk.
Yeah, I don't use it as much as I was using it since Musk took it over. Quite frankly, I'm just waiting on the next bubble to appear. I know it's coming. Somebody's going to create a Twitter 2.0. Until then, Twitter still gets the job done when I want rapid response or if I just want to know, what the culture feels about, the most recent trend. So it has its uses, but also I'm just waiting for the eventual collapse that I think we know is coming unless Musk drops away from the company.
Yeah, I'm kind of in your camp, Chris. I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop and the next big thing, because I was so disappointed in the way that the platform is going under his leadership. But we would be remiss if I did not talk to you all about Mike Pence. So we totally slept on Mike Pence, who entered the 2024 race.
I think it's tomorrow. He hasn't announced yet.
Former boss. This is big news.
For who? For whom?
I don't know.
The fly that's still stuck to his head that he's not aware of.
Yeah.
Hey, this guy says he's the guy that can get it done, Alan. Are you feeling as hopeful about Mike Pence as you are about Twitter?
No, because he can't even represent himself or his wife. So if you can't, that's the basic level for me. If you ain't got those two things, you definitely can't lead a country. And if you want to represent the people who wanted to hang you, serious problems.
All right, Chris, he's going to get this Republican field is getting crowded because tomorrow Chris Christie's going to jump in, and talk is that he's the guy that can take Donald Trump down, at least match him toe to toe when it comes to rhetoric. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Christie, Haley, Scott are all ahead of Pence overall. But let's be honest, unless Donald Trump gets knocked out of this race, it's the Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis race. I think if Trump does get eliminated, now you have a second tier of candidates that might have a chance to eke their way to double digits.
All right, we got to leave it there. Always a pleasure to see you, Chris Scott and Alan Orr. Great insights as usual. When we come forward, I'm talking to a professor who's written a definitive book on the Obama administration and the role of race in that administration and the role that race will play in the 2024 presidential election. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Julius White. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The Saudi Arabian government says it will cut oil production this summer, and that will likely push gas prices higher in the U.S. That's happening despite OPEC saying it wouldn't change production plans for the rest of 2023. Tennessee's controversial drag ban is facing federal opposition, saying it was unconstitutionally vague and substantially overbroad. U.S. District Judge Thomas